Lando Norris not only won in Australia, but he also dominated with a Grand Prix, pole position, fastest lap, and leading from start to finish. Total dominance. McLaren was unstoppable in qualifying, with Norris and Piastri leaving Verstappen at 0.4 of a second behind. And in the race, the lead held even in the rain. But is it enough to think about a title? The most shocking thing about this victory is not only that it broke Verstappen's streak leading the championship, but that it put McLaren on the map as the team to beat. But what does Norris say about all this? Lando Norris stunned the world with one of the most dominant performances of his career at the 2025 Australian Grand Prix. Not only did he take the win, but he did it flawlessly, achieving a Grand Prix, pole position, fastest lap, and leading every single lap of the race. A total dominance that catapulted him to first place in the World Championship for the first time in his Formula One career. This result marked the end of an impressive run for Max Verstappen, who until that point had led the drivers' standings for more than 2 consecutive years. However, beyond breaking the Dutchman's dominance, what truly made an impact was the manner in which Norris and McLaren secured this victory. From qualifying onwards, the British team made it clear they had the fastest car of the weekend. In dry conditions, Norris took pole position with a lead of 0.4 over Verstappen, while Oscar Piastri secured second place, completing the front row for McLaren. It was a direct blow to Red Bull, which for the first time in a long time seemed to have lost its benchmark in pure performance. But the real test came on Sunday. The race began in dry conditions, where Norris set a devastating pace from the start. He controlled the start, defended against the initial attacks, and began to build a solid lead over the rest of the field. However, the challenge increased when rain appeared in the closing laps. This is where Norris's victory became even more significant. While other drivers were making mistakes on the wet track, he managed to maintain his composure. At a key moment, he slid slightly at turn 12, but impressively regained control, avoiding what could have been a disastrous incident. His teammate, on the other hand, wasn't as fortunate and ended up losing a lap after a mistake at turn 13. McLaren not only showed speed, but also executed a perfect strategy. The team made the right decisions at critical moments, such as choosing intermediate tires at exactly the right time, allowing Norris to maintain his lead without taking too many risks. Zak Brown, CEO of McLaren, called the team's performance flawless, highlighting the collective effort that led to this historic victory. Beyond the celebration on the podium, the big question that lingered was, is this the sign of a change in Formula One? For years, Red Bull and Verstappen have dominated unchallenged, but now, with Norris leading the championship and McLaren showing superior pace, the landscape seems to have changed. This victory is not only a turning point in the season, but also in Lando Norris's career. Now, the Briton faces a new challenge, to stay at the top and prove that his performance in Australia was not an exception, but the beginning of something bigger. Lando Norris could have celebrated his victory in Australia with euphoria, carried away by the excitement of having taken the championship lead for the first time in his career. However, his reaction was completely different. Instead of talking about his title aspirations, the British driver called for calm. "People need to calm down a little," he declared in a calm tone, making it clear that despite his victory, his approach remains the same, taking it race by race without jumping to conclusions. His response reflects the maturity he has developed in recent years. In previous seasons, Norris was criticized at key moments for getting carried away by pressure and emotion, but this time he displayed a much more calculating approach. He doesn't want to fall into the trap of thinking too soon about the championship, because he knows that a single win doesn't define the season. For him, the key is maintaining the same mindset that got him to this point. "It doesn't make any difference to me right now. I don't think about it, I don't really care," he stated when asked if his mentality had changed after the win in Melbourne. "I shouldn't change anything I do, I shouldn't change what the team does. I had a good weekend." This approach is significant. In Formula One, the pressure of leading a championship can affect even the most experienced drivers. Charles Leclerc experienced it in 2022, when he lost the lead to Verstappen after a promising start with Ferrari. Even Lewis Hamilton has mentioned on several occasions that the key to staying in the title fight is not just speed, but mental stability. Norris himself admitted that he likely won't think about the championship until halfway through the season. This attitude reflects a significant shift in his approach to competition. Instead of obsessing over the points table, he prefers to focus on improving his performance race by race, something that could be key to sustaining a title fight in the long term. There is also another important aspect to his approach: confidence. In several recent interviews, Norris has mentioned that he feels calmer than ever. "I'm very relaxed and calm, "Probably the most relaxed I've ever been," he stated. This calm contrasts with the image many had of him in his early years in Formula One, when he was more eager to showcase his talent. The confidence he displays now is no coincidence. He arrives after years of working with McLaren, a team that has grown to become a serious title contender. His victory in Australia wasn't a product of luck, but of a team that has worked tirelessly to put him in this position. Norris knows this, and that's why he doesn't feel the need to prove anything with words. He prefers to let his performance on the track speak for itself. Although his reaction may surprise some, the truth is that this kind of mentality is what could make the difference in his season. Not letting pressure get to him, staying focused, and not getting distracted by outside speculation are key factors for a driver who wants to fight for a championship. In the upcoming races, the spotlight will remain on Norris. The big question will be whether he can maintain this mentality when the pressure mounts. If he continues to show the same calm and focus, he could have a better chance of establishing himself as a true title contender. For now, his message is clear. It's not time to talk about championships yet. McLaren has started the season with a clear statement of intent. They have a car capable of winning races and competing at the highest level. Lando Norris's victory in Australia demonstrated that the MCL39 is, at least under certain conditions, the fastest car on the grid. However, the big question remains whether this performance will be sustained throughout the championship or if it was simply the result of a specific circuit and conditions that favored McLaren. The first indication of the MCL39's competitiveness appeared in qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix. Norris and Oscar Piastri secured the front row, with the Briton leading Max Verstappen by 0.4 of a second. In Formula One, a gap of this magnitude is enormous, especially when it comes to overtaking a team like Red Bull, which has dominated recent seasons with almost absolute superiority. McLaren not only displayed a fast car over one lap, but also excellent race pace management, allowing Norris to lead from start to finish. However, the data suggests that McLaren's advantage is not absolute. In dry track conditions, the MCL39 was clearly the fastest car in Melbourne, but when the rain began to fall in the closing laps, Max Verstappen showed very similar pace to Norris. This suggests that the superiority of the McLaren car could depend largely on the condition of the track. A dominant car must not only be fast in ideal conditions, but must also be predictable and manageable under all circumstances. Despite the success in Australia, Norris has been very clear about this. The car is still extremely difficult to drive. While fast, its on-track behavior is not as stable as that of other cars, which could become an issue on circuits where the aerodynamic demands and load on the rear axle are greater. In fact, he himself has pointed out that the biggest area for improvement is at the rear of the car. A car with an unstable rear end can create difficulties both with traction and corner entry and exit, affecting performance on circuits with long sequences of high-speed corners. Car development will be key in the fight for the championship. Early reports indicate that the MCL39 is approximately half a second faster per lap compared to its predecessor, which represents a significant improvement. However, Ferrari has also taken a step forward, with rumors suggesting that its SF25 could have gained up to a second per lap compared to the 2024 model. If this is confirmed in the upcoming races, McLaren will need to evolve quickly to maintain the advantage it displayed at the season opener. The other factor to consider is McLaren's ability to maintain car development throughout the year. During the 2024 season, the British team started with a competitive car, but it wasn't until the second half of the year that they managed to become the strongest team on the grid. This time around, they have entered the championship in a favorable position, but the challenge will be to sustain this performance while Red Bull and Ferrari work on improvements to meet or exceed their level. The MCL39's performance will also depend on the type of circuit. Australia, with its long straights and medium and high-speed corners, was a track where the McLaren shined. But the story could be different at circuits like Monaco or Hungary, where traction and stability in slow corners are even more important. Furthermore, at tracks with many long straights like Monza or Spa, aerodynamic efficiency and top speed can play a crucial role, areas where Red Bull has traditionally been strong. Another key aspect in evaluating the MCL39 is tire strategy and management. In Melbourne, McLaren made impeccable strategic decisions, such as timing the switch to intermediate tires as the rain began to fall. But in such a long season, the team's ability to react quickly to unforeseen situations will be crucial to continue racking up wins. Despite these unknowns, McLaren has proven it has a competitive car from the first race of the year. The question is whether they can maintain this advantage as the season progresses. If they can solve the stability issues and develop new improvements that maintain the MCL39's performance on different types of circuits, they could establish themselves as the team to beat in 2025. However, Formula One history has shown that the hardest part isn't reaching the top, but staying there. Lando Norris's victory in Australia was a turning point in the 2025 season, but the question remains whether he truly has what it takes to become world champion. Leading the championship for the first time in his career is a significant achievement, but maintaining that position throughout an entire season is a completely different challenge. Formula One isn't just about speed, but also about consistency, mentality, and car development. The season is long, and what happened in Australia won't necessarily be a trend across all races. The key to Norris's title challenge lies in three main factors: the evolution of the McLaren MCL39, his ability to handle pressure, and direct competition from teams like Red Bull and Ferrari. The car's development will be decisive. McLaren has proven its car is extremely fast in certain conditions, but the question is whether it can maintain that level of performance on circuits with very different characteristics. Australia favored the MCL39's strengths, but it remains to be seen how it will perform on tracks with greater aerodynamic demands or on street circuits where stability and traction are key. Furthermore, rivals will not stand idly by. Red Bull and Ferrari have shown in previous years that they are capable of making significant improvements throughout the year, and if McLaren doesn't maintain this pace of development, its initial advantage could quickly disappear. Another key point is Norris's mentality. The pressure of leading a championship can be a double-edged sword. Charles Leclerc experienced this in 2022, when a dominant start with Ferrari ended up unraveling due to strategic errors and car development failures. Even more experienced drivers, such as Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel, have had seasons where pressure has played a decisive role in the outcome of the championship. Norris has displayed a mature attitude, urging calm and ensuring that his approach won't change just because he leads the standings. However, maintaining that mentality as the season progresses and the challenges intensify will be a true test for him. There's also the issue of direct competition. Max Verstappen, despite being defeated in Australia, remains the team to beat. Red Bull has been the dominant team in recent years, and although the start to the season hasn't been ideal for them, they're unlikely to remain at a disadvantage for long. The Austrian team's responsiveness is one of its greatest strengths, and if they manage to find improvements to their car, Norris will have to contend with a more aggressive and determined Verstappen. Ferrari is also a real threat. With Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz in top form and an SF25 that promises to be a significant step up from its predecessor, the Italian team could become a serious contender if it maintains its progress this season. In 2024, they were just 14 points behind McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, proving they were already at a very high competitive level. Another factor that cannot be overlooked is the internal struggle within McLaren. Oscar Piastri has proven he has the speed to challenge Norris, and if the team remains competitive, it's very likely the two will end up fighting for the same number of points. This could create a complicated scenario for McLaren, which would have to decide whether to allow a free-for-all between its drivers or prioritize one of them in the title fight. Throughout the history of Formula One, teams that have faced this type of situation have had very different results. In some cases, such as Mercedes with Hamilton and Rosberg, the rivalry turned destructive. In others, such as Red Bull with Verstappen and Sergio Perez, it has been handled with a clear hierarchy from the outset. Despite all these factors, Norris has a strong case to be considered a title contender. His performance has been exceptional since the end of 2023, and in 2024 he was the driver who scored the most points in the second half of the season. His evolution as a driver has been evident, and if he maintains consistency, he has everything it takes to fight until the final race. The upcoming races will be crucial in defining the championship landscape. If McLaren can maintain its performance advantage, Norris will have a real chance of consolidating his position as the favorite. But if Red Bull or Ferrari manage to close the gap, the title fight could become even more intense. It's still too early in the season to make definitive predictions, but what is clear is that Formula One has a serious new championship contender. Now, everything will depend on whether Norris and McLaren can sustain this level of performance and withstand the pressure that comes with the possibility of becoming world champion.